uploading the video I made on how to learn jazz music, and where I started to explain about intent and feel. I've had some emails. People have been going to my website and they've been sending me emails with some questions on the video that I was talking about, and one of the questions, or a few of the questions actually, has been about feel. So it's one thing getting lines down, but then you got to play your lines with a feeling and an intention and convey your spirit, right? And it's that unlocking that spirit in your practice. How do you go about doing that? So it's a really interesting question, and I thought I would attempt to explain it. And it's made me think, actually, but I kind of know it, but try and put it into words for you. Well, feel stems from no thought. This is the way how I see it. If you don't have a conscious thought going on, you can feel things better. For instance, when we listen to music, I think it's, for me personally, it might be different for you or for other people, but for me personally, when I listen to music and I really appreciate music, I don't sit there analysing it as I would do with a studious mind. I switch that part of my brain off and I feel music. When I listen to one of my CDs, it could be anything from Bill Evans Trio to Copeland Clarinet Concerto or anything. I don't sit there analysing it so much. I sit there appreciating the music. So my conscious thought, my conscious mind, consciousness is switched off, and I'm feeling the emotion behind that. So if you consider that, thought stagnates feeling, right? Thought stagnates feeling. And that's something that I learnt and that I was told as well when I was studying Tai Chi. I studied Tai Chi for a good 2.5 years. And then after that I went into studying a Kung Fu system, and the same principle applies. So it's interesting because the same principle applies in music as it would do to sport as well, where the conscious mind, or the thinking mind, if it's switched off, if it's completely switched off, you feel more, and a high state of consciousness comes into play. Freedom from the thinking mind, so your freedom from that thinking mind, comes when you realise you're not actually the thinker. So you yourself as a whole, you yourself as a whole, you're not necessarily just the thinker. And when I'm talking about the thinker, I'm talking about, your stream of consciousness, your streamlined thinking, one thought going on to another thought, going on to another thought. It's the voices in your mind. So if you take a third person perspective, by observing your thoughts, by actually observing your thoughts, observing yourself as the thinker, you can become really liberated from that. And we tap into feeling more and become more intuitive. So we can tap into our intuitive state and our feeling state as opposed to our analytical, conscious, sort of logical state. When you start to realise there's a greater difference of one's intelligence beyond thought, where thought is just a small portion of your overall greater intelligence, you then start to realise your creativity and connection and love and feeling arise beyond that thinking mind. So in music, the less you judge yourself as the thinker during your practice, and simply just be whilst playing, right? So you just be. You are. You're not, that thinking mind. You just be during playing, and observe yourself non-critically. So you're just observing yourself in a non-judgmental or critical fashion. And if we do that during our practice time, you know, we can practice that state of mind, and that will then bleed into whatever we do, you know, during a performance. It's like widening your gaze almost, instead of just concentrating on the thought process. And it's like watching the thinker from within yourself, as you're not entirely comprised of being the thinker as a whole. You know, you are actually this higher state of consciousness, and that's what we want to try and aim towards, you know, in our playing and during our performance. You know, some people can just stop halfway through a phrase that they're playing, and they can just think, oh, you know, I made a mistake there. And you can either make that really evident or use that mistake to continue a line of some sort. But for me, in jazz music, the jazz really happens when we're pushing ourselves to our boundaries. Right? We're really stretching ourselves to our boundaries on the bandstand. And we should, I mean, just for me personally, that's what we should be doing. And really testing our whole sense of musicianship as well at the same time. And perhaps, no, not always, but aim towards creating these so-called mistakes, right? And it's our duty and our responsibility and practice as an ensemble, as a whole, not just you as a soloist, but by interacting with the members of an ensemble, to resolve these musical problems caused and potentially created. And that is tension and release, right? So, you know, if we have any fears about making a mistake while we're playing, use your mistakes. And I think one of the best examples of that concept is the 1960s Miles Davis group. And of course you'll find this in many other different examples of CDs, wonderful recordings throughout time. But for me personally, I'm a big fan of Miles Davis' 1960s group, and you hear these musicians being pushed, and everyone's pushing each other to these extremes all the time, and you hear this constant tension and release, tension and release.